I'm back at work as opposed to the furlough period earlier in the year, because I'm fishing the Black Country Canal system a lot more now. Much more local for me. It fits in with work. First cast, not a big roach, but it's always good to get off the mark, especially at this time of the year when the fishing can become quite difficult due to the drop in water temperature. Bait's out again, time for a drink of tea. I'm next to a lock. I don't know if you can hear the movement of the water, but, and again, especially at this time of the year, that's quite a common phrase that I've used recently, and for good reason, because float dip there. I'm going to hold the rod actually while I talk, because this is the time when the fish are less likely to be mobile, or they'll be less mobile, should I say. And I'm going to need the net for this one. I'll be back in a moment. Where was I? Yes, they'll be less mobile and they'll be shoaled up more. So you find out where they are and you'll be able to have a good day, even when the water temperature is low and the conditions aren't what you are used to during the summer months. Don't give up during the winter, the autumn and the winter and the early spring. Just think about your fishing a little bit more. The water is very clear, and I'm back from the edge. In fact, I would say I'm a good 10 feet away, right up against the brick structure of the lock. Last thing you want to do is to be perched right on the edge of the canal, because the fish will see you, they'll see your movement, and that'll spook them. I've been trickling out some maggots. No brown crumb today, just went for the maggot approach first of all, just to test the water, as it were, see what the fish response is. Seems to be quite good. I've had a roach and a perch, both very early on, so I'm pleased with that. I'm watching the float. I seem to have been to my float fishing recently, and that's great. And that's what angling is, isn't it? You fish how you want. I do fish with a ledger often, and it's certainly the way I'll be going once we hit the darker evenings. So I'll be watching an isotope. It's a very practical way of fishing, of course, once it gets dark. But you can fish how you want. If you fish with a float, a ledger, or whatever method, as long as you're not bothering anyone else, that's the important thing. Another dip there. I think I'm working out the swim. That's what you do when you go fishing. You work out what's happening very quickly. And I think if I've got a mix of roach and perch in there, and certainly plenty of the former, because the way that the float goes, it tells me that I've got roach out there. You can tell, can't you, not just with a bite or the fight even, but the way that the float reacts to these different types of fish. Tench bite, for example, you can tell as soon as the float moves that you've got a tench on. It's getting to learn the fish, the habits, the ways, and why the float moves. That's important. Not just that a roach or a perch or a tench causes a different reaction on the float, but why? What happens beneath the surface of the water as they take the bait that causes the float to respond in the way it does. And when you think about that and you work that one out, then it helps you in your process to stay one step ahead of the fish themselves. When I'm catching lots of fish, I don't always show them, but I will with this one. It's a small perch, and as I've said on many occasions in the past, with a fish of this size, small but perfectly formed It's early morning, by the way. I was intending to go fishing at some point during this morning, and as it happened, I woke up quite naturally before first light. My body was saying to me, take me fishing. And you know what they say, always listen to your body. So I got up. I have the luxury of a tackle room at home, and all I need to do is load the car and away I go. So I can get up, and within a reasonable amount of time I'm on my way. There's a lot of football at the moment in Wales. Well, top flight. Everywhere else hasn't started yet, so it isn't underway. But in the top flight, we've been given elite sports status by the Welsh Government, so we're playing at the moment, and 2 games a week, so quite busy. And I've got another one this evening in Aberystwyth, so I'll be leaving home about 2 this afternoon, and then that will be another very late one when I get home. I would imagine 1:30 maybe from Aberystwyth. It's not too bad, you get used to it. On a personal level though, my full-time working career will come to an end at some point, of course. Even back in my 30s, my intention was at some point in the future, I mean back then you're talking decades, but at some point in the future to go part-time, not to retire fully. I've never wanted to look forward to the day when I was 65 or 66, as I think it is now, and then you stop. My intention was to carry on, but not to be full-time. When I'm 70, I don't want to be working 50 hours a week, but if I can do a couple of days a week in a job that I enjoy, then that's different. So that's always been my intention anyway. And I do have a plan of sorts. In fact, I've had a plan for a long time now. I wouldn't call it a plan of escape, because I do enjoy working full-time in football. But you do think about the future. And you do think about what you do as well. I enjoy football. That, for me, that's a big factor. So I am one of those people that can make a living out of something they enjoy. I also enjoy fishing and other stuff as well. So it's about balance in life, isn't it? That's very important. Whatever you do, it's all about balance. And when I'm doing my football stuff, I must admit, it doesn't really feel like a job. Going to a game and doing interviews or writing website articles, meeting people, it's not the same as when I first left school. I worked in a factory just off the Birmingham New Road in Dudley called Thomas Dudley, and there's 2 sections. There's a casting section and a systems plastics department. I worked in the latter. I was an office works clerk. I enjoyed that. It was quite good. And I was there for a short time. Then I got into upholstery, and then I moved on further into my life. It's interesting when you look back, isn't it? I think the older you get, the more nostalgic you do become. And on a canal next to a lock, I always remember my first ever fish. It was a gudgeon, way back in the late 1960s or possibly even 1970. I can't remember now. It's been that long ago. I'll tell you what I can remember though. It was a float, and it was right alongside the lock, the brickwork, like I am now. It was at a place called the Bratch on the Staffordshire-Worcestershire Canal, just outside Wombourne in Staffordshire. And I'll never forget that float. I talked about bites earlier. It was a gudgeon take, very distinctive, as I soon came to realise. And the float went, disappeared, I struck. And after quite some time of trying, I caught my first ever fish. And it's true to say that although I was hooked before that, that was the signed, sealed and delivered moment as far as I'm concerned. And here I am all these years, all these decades later, I'm still as passionate and enthusiastic about my fishing as I was when I was a kid. And that's part of the balance of my life. I do lots of things and I enjoy doing lots of things, but fishing always plays a prominent part. However, and I've said this on many occasions, I'm passionate but not obsessed. There's a difference. When I walk away from the canal this morning, I go back home, I won't be thinking about fishing. Football will be on my mind, work will be on my mind. That's the next stage of today's journey. Obsession is where you can't get something off your mind. Whatever you're doing, you're at work, you're out shopping, you just can't wait to go fishing. That's an obsession, that's unhealthy. But a passion is positive. It means that I'll walk away from the canal and I'll get on with the rest of the day and I'll enjoy that. I won't be thinking, I wish I was fishing. And then on my next session, which will be tomorrow, Saturday, I'll do the same thing again. I think it's important to understand the difference between passion and obsession. And even on my website, a little tagline on the home page, it says, passionate about much, obsessed about nothing. And that includes fishing as well.